1051, I'm on scene. I'll be assuming Caroline Street Command. I got a 2.5-story wood occupied multiple dwelling. I got heavy fire from the second floor, Charlie side. I have an exposure on the Delta side. We have one line stretch not in operation yet. Primary searches are underway. Status of the fire is doubtful. One passing command. I'm on the first line. Service speed advised. We're on scene. 2-story wood frame. I got heavy fire from the Alpha side.
Welcome back, fans of the Volley Chief. Exciting new episode here. I'm with Battalion Chief Dustin Dodge of the River Fall Fire Department in Wisconsin, checking off another state. So I've got North Dakota, Texas, obviously Connecticut, now Wisconsin. So we're starting to knock them off one by one. Thank you very much for being here today, Dustin.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn it over to you. So just give us the intro, the bio, how long you've been in the fire service, what rank you are, what got you here and all that. So go for it.
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the fire service now for about 18 years. Made my start in the Air Force where I got my training. Left active duty Air Force and joined the volunteer ranks here in my local community. Pretty small department, about 55 members. I've worked my way up to Battalion Chief of Training. We covered quite a swath here. We have 180 square miles, 26,000 residents in 5 different townships. So real diverse, very rural in some areas. I also work full-time as a firefighter in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, at the airport as a driver operator. And then if that wasn't enough, I also do assistant chief for the Air Force Reserve as well. So as you said, I'm a busy man.
Yes, I actually started my career fire service. I was a fireman on a naval air base in South Weymouth, Massachusetts. I was there
so you get the military fire deal.
Yeah, I was there for about a year and then the base closed. So I took the job knowing that the base was closing, but I just figured a foot in the door, looked good on a resume.
Oh yeah.
Thing.
Yep, I was in Oklahoma and then I was in Hawaii. And then I came back to Minnesota. And then I have 3 deployments in there as well as a firefighter.
Nice. And so you said about 135 square miles?
180 square
180
miles is our response area. Some responses can be well over 15 minutes.
I'm mind blown because Connecticut, it's a lot of people obviously think that Connecticut's very rural, but the areas that I'm from were very urban and the city of Derby, it's 14,000 people in an area of 5 square miles. And our area is a bunch of these little cities like this. And talking to you folks, especially what you're getting out west, you guys were talking, you're talking almost a 200 square mile district. Right. And I mean, I'm like, I get aggravated with like a 6-minute run in the rig. I'm like, oh God, this is terrible.
Yeah, when you get into mutual aid, I mean, you might be driving 20, 30 minutes to get to a mutual aid call.
And you have, it sounds like though you have, what's your call volume?
The call volume, we're running about 350 calls a year. They're all fire calls though. We don't do any EMS.
No EMS.
Maybe some lift assists here and there, but EMS is run by a separate agency.
Yeah, it's always good when you're not doing the EMS.
Oh, I love it. I do.
And you got about 50 members now. Are you guys like independent fire companies or just one big fire district, or how does that work?
So we're one big fire department. We're run by the city. So we're funded through the taxpayers there. And then we have the Rural Fire Association for those townships. As far as we're a paid per call department. So we do get some compensation. We're not true volleys, but yeah, that's kind of how it runs right now. And we're broke up into truck companies and such for supervisory reasons. We're sitting right now with we have 1 full-time person, that'd be the chief. Then we have 2 division chiefs, 4 battalion chiefs, and then 6 captains, and the rest are firemen. And people always say, like, why do you have so many officers? Wow, I mean, but with a volunteer department, you just don't know who's going to show up.
Right.
And you do kind of almost need to double every position with the anticipation that half the people are going to be unavailable.
Absolutely. I spending years, there's only 4 of us in there was a fire chief, 3 assistants. And now, especially with the world we live in where no one lives in town, everyone's commuting out, you're frequently having incidents where you're relying on a captain to run the incident or even a mutual aid chief from one of our neighboring towns.
Right. And we do have a pretty good system here. We have a chief vehicle and we separate that up between the officers and we take that home at night. So there's always a chief on call every night. So you always got solid leadership around the clock. And then during the day, that full-time chief would take the chief vehicle. So you always kind of know you have that consistency there.
And what do you have for apparatus?
So apparatus wise, we have 3 engines. We got 2 Pierce and then a old custom. That's our reserve engine. And then we have a ladder truck, 2 tenders, 2 brush trucks, and then some auxiliary trailers and such. So I think it's a pretty good complement. We are a college town, so we have quite a few high rises in the dormitories, and that's the reason for the ladder truck.
Now, this is something, again, things I'm loving about this coast to coast thing. Tenders, for us, they're tankers in the Northeast.
Well, tankers are in the air, as what I
Yes,
learned. Yeah, because we are very close to the protected areas for the DNR, and they
Okay.
do have a lot of aerial apparatus doing, water shuttles and dumps and such. So we do try to keep that terminology correct, being that we're so close to that DNR area.
Yeah, we everything around here, they're tankers that are, your tenders. So I find it funny, the little things that I'm learning about the differences. And that's not bad though. A couple engines, you got the truck there. Again, like we're 5 square miles, 5 engines, the truck, a rescue, it's nice, but it's just amazing that we have such a small area with more apparatus that you guys have such a large area.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of wild.
Requirements to be an officer.
So requirements. So the state of Wisconsin, I think, is pretty progressive in this. They required, it started about 6 years ago. They required fire officer 1 as a minimum requirement statewide to be an officer. You don't have to have the certification, but you must have taken the course. So that's our standard as well, is must have taken the class to be eligible. And then we require, I believe it's 3 years as a firefighter.
Which is good. I mean, that's, it is one of the things that I've encountered over the years is the differences. There's a lot of states don't have any requirement. It's up to the local authority having jurisdiction to determine who's going to be an officer. So that's nice that the state has a requirement, because at least it takes it out of your hands. You don't have to worry about, because over the years I've seen departments where they fluctuate. They want this guy to be in, so they lower the bar. Then the guy goes, another guy comes in, they want to raise the bar. But it's nice to have a set standard. Here in Connecticut, there's obviously the fire academy offers all the programs, but there is nothing that says you have to have the certification to the rank that you hold.
Right. Yeah, and certifications, are nothing without experience. I know I work over in Minnesota as well. They don't require that. I'm kind of surprised. Like, they just really don't look at certifications that heavily at all, and experience kind of trumps it. I kind of agree on that respect. I think that, for a person personally that has a lot of certifications, if you don't use those certifications, you really don't hold on to that much knowledge from them. You might be, inspector 2 or 3, but if you're not doing inspections, I don't think you're staying very proficient.
No,
So,
I mean, anyone would agree with you. My job, one of our last chief departments, he was, just one of the best fire officers we worked under, but he, no college degree, he just came up through the ranks and great reputation, great wealth of knowledge. But like you said, that if you put him on paper, you probably would have a hard time getting him a job as a Walmart greeter.
Right. That's what I always say when you get into fire interviews, that your interview is so much more important than your resume. They're really hiring character over, certificates.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you guys is that a natural progression, or are a lot of your guys coming in, joining the volunteer department, using it to get that experience and then moving on?
Yeah, we're pretty successful in launching careers. We'll give the fire 1 and 2 and the hazmat ops, and then we've seen guys move on to full-time employment, and that's always kind of a success when that happens. But we also have a really good retention, actually. I think we have certain things that really play into that. But when we do see people leave, we're pretty happy for it. We have a lot of really long standing members. I'm talking 30, 40 years of service on the department. One of my favorite retention techniques that we use, I don't think I've seen anywhere else, is we have a meal every single Monday. So we train 4 days a week. Every Monday we cook a meal, and we've worked it out with the high school So the high school home ec class is cooking for us weekly. So if you come to training, you get a free meal, pretty good deal.
Yeah, that is. That's firemen and free food go together.
Yeah. And not a lot of volunteer fire departments get to break bread together because they don't work together like full time. So I think that's a cool thing to be able to do too, is share a meal together.
Yeah, I've actually never thought of that. You're absolutely right. I mean, uh, where I grew up, the volunteer firehouse that I grew up in, a lot of us grew up together so that the camaraderie was always there, but it was actually formed before the fire department.
Right. We just see that a lot with, a very small town, that people do all know each other. And there's a lot of like legacy where a lot of parents and their children are on the department as well.
Now, what do you think when you're bringing in the newer officers? What are your go-to moves? What do you tell them? What's your expectations of them?
Yeah. So we really changed how we done officers over the time I've been on the department. Originally it was popularity vote and it was a lifetime assignment. And we realized that wasn't a very good way to handle things. We did a reorg about 6 years ago where we made it where you apply for your position. It's for 3 years. And then after that 3 years, you have to reapply. Kind of a check on, hey, well, how'd you do in this position? Is it right for you or not? But when we hire these officers, I'm looking for certain traits. One of them always being, if are they humble? Are they willing to admit when they make a mistake, or willing to admit what they don't know? We all know in this industry, there's a trap early on in your career where you think you got it all figured out. You're like, oh, this isn't that complicated. This is easy. This is so simple. And sometimes people can get a little bit ahead of themselves, and kind of it takes time to get kind of put in your place and go, oh, I know nothing. So I always look for those officers that are willing to seek out knowledge, share knowledge, admit mistakes, and be humble. And another thing I always remind these officers is that this is a service position. This isn't a position of telling people what to do. You're taking care of your guys. They're looking to you for not only for leadership, they're looking to you for knowledge. They're looking to you to keep them safe. Uh, it's really a service position, and it's not about you. It's about your crews. And I'm going to judge you on how good of an officer you've been based off of how well trained and how knowledgeable your crews are. Because that's really the judge of character when it comes to leadership, they're the followers.
And now, how do you guys handle the training? So is it so like is it let's get together? What are we going to do today? Or do the company officers handle their company?
So it kind of depends. Our training nights, like I said, we train 4 days a week, or sorry, 4 days a month. My bad. When we get together, we do a monthly officer training night where we'll do quick check out of the trucks, and then everybody else will be released, and the officers will get together and train on, say, a tabletop exercise. I know just the other night we were doing size ups and working with divisions and stuff like that. So officer training is a monthly occurrence. As far as most Monday nights go, it's going to be dictated by the training department, and the officers will travel with their groups, their team, to all the different stations you might have. So say it's ladders tonight, that officer is going to kind of lead his crews through those stations and keep that crew integrity if possible. But we usually don't have the officers personally lead the training. It's usually dictated at a higher level, just because we're all busy, we all have full-time jobs, and we kind of leave it to the training department to dictate what we're going to do on a Monday night, just to keep it simple. But it's really hard. It's really hard putting together training for 55 people. I'll tell you what, on a weekly basis, it's such a large group, and how do you break them up, and how do you keep everybody engaged? You have so many different levels of knowledge and ability. It's very challenging.
Yeah, we used to be a free for all where it would be in our town, Thursday's the magical night. Uh and we would meet the first Thursday of the month, like you said, be a meeting, and then followed out, we would loosely schedule like engine company stuff this day, rescue company stuff that day. One of the things that we actually did to improve all that was we created a week or a monthly department-wide drill, multi-company department-wide drill. But we also farmed it out. We took RFPs, and I don't know if it's like this around you guys, but we have a lot of obviously being sandwiched between like New York, Boston, it's the bigger cities around here, even in Bridgeport, New Haven. there's a lot of training companies, you know, out independent of the fire academy. We did an RFP and actually hired one of them, and they would come in and run the monthly department-wide drill. And it was a huge thing off our plate, because it's like, you know, as you know, what do you do and that's what I always say. That's the worst part about being an officer in a volunteer department. It's that, what do we do this week? And that took, you know, 12 of those off the table, where they would come in and provide the training. And I just thought that was a interesting way to handle that problem, was to bring in an outside vendor to do it.
It's amazing how much credibility outside vendors have when you bring them in. You know, you can
Right. Well, that's
preach
what
until you're blue in the
I,
face, and then you bring an outside guy in to say
right.
the same thing, and they're like, oh, now I'm listening. You know, it's
Right.
kind of
And
funny sometimes.
I would always laugh at that, because again, like in our area, you know, one of our assistant chiefs right now, he's a lieutenant on New Haven's, you know, rescue company. And it's like, if you brought him in, somebody's in the back making a paper airplane, you know, somebody's making noises on their phone. But if I brought in like a guy from New York and they taught the same curriculum, everyone would just be in wow, because this guy's from New York. So it is
Yeah, it's, you know, and yeah, it's really interesting when you see like the full time. I hear this all the time on the volley. They're like, "Oh, you full time guys are getting so much training. You're getting so much experience and knowledge." And I disagree in some respects. I feel like the volleys train harder than anybody, and I think it's because you have such a constant, steady state of new guys coming in the door. You know, everyone kind of understands the fact that we don't do this every day, so we got to train harder. It takes longer to learn this stuff. I think that the volleys are training way harder than the full times in a lot of respects, because we're not running all the calls either. I mean, it's a nightmare doing a training evolution on a full time department. We're getting calls throughout our whole training day. It's really hard to accomplish training with the distractions. So I really give it to the volleys. I think they're training really hard, and they're actually really knowledgeable. And I put them up against any full time department.
I agree, and I've always said the same thing. You know, I say, look, there's guys in Derby that I'd rather go to in a fire than there's guys in Bridgeport. But then again, there's guys in Bridgeport that, you know, it's relative to the people. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, it is difficult when you're trying to do, you know, all this training on all these different disciplines. And like we said, you're really doing it 3-4 times a month.
Yeah. But if you're doing it for, you know, 2 or 3 hours once a week, I believe that's more than the full time guys are doing, because they might do an hour a shift. They're only working 9 shifts. That's only 9 hours. I think you're still getting more time on the volley side. And I always look at these volley guys is that they're all there and they're all passionate. They're not there for the paycheck. They are obviously have an interest in doing the job, and they want to learn and they want to do well. When at full time, you're going to see some guys that are there to collect the check at the end of the day, and they really aren't living it, and they don't have a passion for the job. And that's what I love about volley is everyone's so excited to be there every day, and they really are wanting to get at it when it comes to training.
And now on your career side, how busy are you guys there?
We're running about 4,000 calls a year out there, a lot of medicals. We got a similar size department. It's about 55 as well. But this is a different dynamic. International airports are kind of their own beast in itself. It's 100,000 people a day coming through there. It's in kind of an industrial firefighting type tactics where you're dealing with standpipes primarily. It's totally different. And then you come out to the rural here, and we have, I would say 80% of our response area is going to be drop tanks and water shuttles. It's just night and day, completely different. And then we fight a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to have a lot more fires out here in the rural. When in industrial setting, you got alarm systems and you got smoke, you know, you got extinguishers every 10 feet. You know, it's just really well done for fire prevention. You just don't see the fires that you see out in the rural.
Yeah, it is like you said, it's totally different. I mean, you know, I've never had to deal with an airport really, obviously years and years ago. But you guys, I would imagine you're running medicals in the facilities and in the terminals and stuff like that more than anything.
Oh yeah, that's 80%, about 70-75% of what we do is medicals. And then we get about 10% the in-flight emergencies, and the rest is car fires and you know, vehicle accidents, fire alarms, stuff like that.
Now, how long is your term as chief? Is it a life sentence? Do you have to re-up? Like, what's your term for chief?
So Like I said, every 3 years, everyone reapplies.
Okay, so that I didn't know that applied to you also.
Yep, it applies to all officer positions beside the chief. So yeah, like I said, we have division chiefs, battalion chiefs, and then you have the captains, and and then the engineer position as well. Every 3 years is going to reapply, and I think what's great about that way we're doing it now is there's always this like cusp of opportunity. Always people feel like there's a chance for me to move up. When it was lifetime assignments, it kind of felt locked in and felt there was no accountability. So some officers that weren't necessarily putting in the effort, they could just rest and on their laurels and not do anything. And now it's always like that. Okay, in 3 years, I'm going to have to answer. And then the young guy coming up behind me is going to want my position. What am I doing with it? It creates this great dynamic of opportunity that I love. So I really think it's working well.
Good. That is, yeah. That's a new one. I've never. We test for chief. You test for assistant chief, and then it becomes attrition. Every 2 years, you move up, and then in 8 years, you're out. That's how our chiefs are rotated, and it's kind of common in this area for a system like that. So the 3 year thing is new, and I agree with you. It keeps everything fresh. If you got somebody in there that's not good, you got a chance to get rid of them. But if you got somebody in there that's good, you got a chance to keep them.
Right. And obviously there's going to be more requirements as you get higher up, where you're going to need like 7 years of officer experience in order to move up into a chief position. So and then there's also some requirement with like NIMS and stuff like that. So we do increase the requirements as you go along as well. Try to encourage guys to get out and get their certifications.
And everyone can't wait to take a NIMS class. I mean, if there's anything,
yeah. That 300-400 is probably one of the most painful classes I've taken.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
But all right, so I like to keep the shows around 20 minutes, so we're at the 20-minute mark. Anything else you want to add? Anything we're missing?
No, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I appreciate sharing what we are doing over here in Wisconsin. And good luck to your 50-state goal.
Thank you, and thank you for being on. And I'll be in touch. I'm gonna keep a list in case anybody wants to come back, talk more. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
FD1's back in service. Commands terminated.